Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. And you've probably heard me say this before. I know that half my marketing is working. I just don't know which half. And that is very common for businesses of all size, but particularly small business owners who jump into it and then aren't quite sure what it is they've got. And one way to avoid getting to that I don't know what I'm doing stage is maybe to do a little planning up front. And that's what I'm going to talk to my guest, Sara Nay, about today. She is the COO of Duct Tape Marketing. And I'm going to tell you at the end of this that if you are not subscribing to their content, reading their books, reading their blogs, you're really missing out. And so today we're going to pick Sara's brain and we're going to talk about how you can stop wasting money on marketing. And so I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Sara. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a topic that I'm absolutely passionate about. So I'm excited to dive into it more with you today.
Absolutely. And so let's sort of jump right into it.
Yeah.
When you talk about business owners wasting money on marketing, what do you think the biggest money suck is for them? Where's one hole they could plug right away?
Yeah, there's actually, I would say, two main areas that I see a lot of people struggling with, a lot of small business owners struggling with. And one of it is a lot of people just dive into tactics without thinking about the overall strategy. And so they'll see their competitors doing Facebook ads. So now they needed to do Facebook ads, or they'll hear they're on TikTok, so they'll jump on it, or whatever it might be. But really, it needs to come down to, is your audience on that channel, and how can you go about it strategically, and what message resonates with your audience on that specific channel. And so that's really the same with all things marketing, answering those questions of who's our target audience, what message resonates with them, where do they find their information online, how do they make purchase decisions, and that should then help direct you to, okay, maybe yes, you should be on Facebook if you can answer yes to a lot of those questions. But then when you decide you want to do something like a Facebook campaign, it's not just thinking about the ad, it's thinking about the entire customer journey that supports the ad. So again, it starts with who you're targeting with what message, and a lot of that can go into the ad. But then after that, it's where are you sending them? How are you building an additional relationship with them? Are you going to capture an email? If you're going to capture an email, how are you going to continue to educate and nurture them so they're ready to get to the point to have a conversation with you? And so something like Facebook, I just keep going to that because that was my original example. Like, it's not just, should we be on this channel? It's, should we be on this channel? If yes, okay, how can we approach this channel strategically to guide the customer journey? And so those are kind of like the two parts to something like that. So that's where I see a lot of people wasting money. They just dive into these tactics without thinking about those things first. Another way I see a lot of people wasting money on marketing is they will just set up all of these different tactics without saying, okay, what metrics do we need to pay attention to determine if this is successful? And so an example all the time I see people do is, maybe they're a local business, an HVAC contractor, for example, and they're doing direct mail pieces. And so they're sending out these direct mail pieces, and they're like, it's going to this many people. And some people mention it when they call us. That's not going to give you enough information to determine if you should do that thing again over and over again. And so if you're sending out a direct mail piece, you want to have a call tracking number on there, and you want to determine how many exact calls are coming in, and then how many of those calls are turning into actual customers. And so again, if you decide you want to go all in on a channel, thinking strategically about that channel, but also thinking strategically about the metrics that will help you determine if that specific channel is worth doing in the future again.
Absolutely. And so I want to just circle back on several of the things you said, because you packed a lot into those first few minutes, which is awesome. But number one, just because somebody else is doing it, it doesn't mean it's right for you.
Yep.
And then understanding that when you create something and you create an ad, you got to think all the way through the process. And really think about how are you going to measure, and then when you get that prospect, what are you going to do with them? And so let's kind of dive into that first idea where you had an ad or a campaign on Facebook, and you did get people to sign up for your your email, or you
Mhm.
download something and they gave you their email information. What kind of things should I be doing? What kind of things can I do that will make that really valuable
Yeah,
beyond just,
absolutely.
oh, I've got an email address?
Yeah, absolutely. We One of our core concepts we call the marketing hourglass, and so that's essentially thinking through how can you get people to know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer from you. And so if you're thinking about something like an ad, because that's what we're talking about, like the know thing is someone seeing your ad. But then you have to think through, okay, once they go to your website, how are you going to get them to like and trust you? Is it testimonials? Is it telling a story? Is it providing a ton of value? Is it, what are you doing to help them say, okay, I didn't know about you. Now I know about you. Now I'm going to start to like and trust you. And then do you have some sort of trial offer that you can offer to get them in the door? Maybe it's a free consultation or it's a trial to your product or whatever it might be. And then after that, you have to think through, okay, once they're ready to purchase, how do you blow them away once they've purchased so they don't regret the decision? And then
Mhm.
if you have a reoccurring revenue model or upsells or cross sells, how can you begin turn them into repeat clients, if that makes sense? And then how can you turn them into hopefully referral sources? Because the great thing about referral sources is people move through the front end of the hourglass so much faster because there's a lot of that trust already built in. And so when we're thinking about marketing with our clients, it's the full picture. You're really thinking about
Mhm.
marketing, sales, and customer service and taking care of someone along that whole path. And that's really what's going to set you up with predictable growth moving forward and not just focusing on that no piece, which is a lot of what a lot of people sort or default to.
And actually, in a way, you almost have to start maybe in the middle or the bottom third of that hourglass. You really need to start with, how are you going to take care of the customer when you get them? How are you going to keep them happy? Now you've answered those questions. Now you can back up almost and say, okay, now I can think about, what am I going to offer them to get them excited? And when you have all those pieces in place, now you can think about, okay, now I'm ready to run an ad.
Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, when clients come to us to hire us for our services, like if someone comes to me and they're like, "We have all these great clients. They stay with us for years. They refer us all the time. We just need to get in front of more clients." I'm like, "That's great. You have a great product or service, and you're keeping your clients happy. We can absolutely market for you to bring more clients to you." Versus if someone would come to me and they're like, "Our retention's a mess. No one's referring us. Like our services maybe aren't that great." So I'm like, marketing can't fix that. Like we
Mm.
can bring in more and more leads, but if they're not going to stick around, you're not going to see that true growth. And so, absolutely, I think it really comes down to taking care of the people that are in your space, whether prospects or clients first, and really nailing your systems to serve those clients. And then marketing can be so much more effective because you can have different efforts of marketing going at the same time: retention, referrals, and some of the awareness things that you might layer on top of that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that you talked about early on was the idea of measuring the results about,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of times people jump immediately to, well, I ran the ad, did I get a sale? And not recognizing that there are those interim steps. How can I measure the effectiveness of what is really an awareness campaign to decide whether I need to do more of that or adjust to a different type of marketing?
Yeah, I mean, for something like it just kind of depends on which tactics you're focusing on. So, like to your point with the paid, like there are so many steps around. Like you want to do cost per click and conversion rate, and like there's just so many different steps. How much people watched your video if you're doing video? Like there's a lot of information you can track on something like that, and it's important if you're doing a paid campaign to track all of that stuff because it will show you like where your gaps are to tweak the specific
Mhm.
campaign. And so getting really detailed on something like that is very important. But if you're focusing on tactics like referrals or speaking, it's more of how many conversations did you have? Did those referrals turn into clients? Like, so it can be a little bit lighter. So really like the level of detail in terms of the tracking is dependent on the tactic that you're focusing on. But definitely like if you're doing any marketing on any channels, you should have the conversation with around what's important on this channel, what information do we need, and what will make this a success, so we want to continue doing it moving forward. And then tracking those on a weekly or monthly basis, and then continuing to optimize based on what the numbers are telling you. And that's, again, it's where a lot of people struggle in small business space about marketing is they're doing these things, but they don't know if it's successful or not. So then they keep just doing these things and they don't know if their marketing is successful. And so taking that step back and saying, are we doing the right things? Are we getting the results we're hoping for? If the answer is no, then maybe even taking a further step back and doing an overall marketing strategy is the direction to go.
Absolutely. I could talk about this topic for hours and hours and hours, but what we're going to do is we're going to put a pin in it right here. And I am going to tell you that Sara has got an amazing resource. It is a free ebook, The Fractional CMO Model, and there will be a link in the show notes to uh,
It's
DTM.
DTM, yeah, DTM.world/growth. And on that page, we have an ebook for fractional CMOs because we work a lot with fractional CMOs, but we also have some free resources for small business owners as well. Maybe you're interested in possibly working on a strategy with a fractional CMO. There's a bunch of information you can find on that page, and also a link to book a call with me if you're interested.
Awesome. Well, I am going to encourage, if you guys are not familiar with duct tape marketing, you need to be. There is so much great information there. Sara, thank you again for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
And if you've enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to find other information for your business, check out another episode. They're short. Look for MTFW wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.